Yesterday was a painful and a heartbreaking day for the people of Cooper Spring. And today I want to speak to it directly, not only as the Member of Parliament for Trelawney Northern, but as someone who stood with these families yesterday, saw their pain firsthand, and believe the public deserves to know what transpired. First, I want to make something absolutely clear. What happened yesterday here in Cooper Spring was not a government of Jamaica operation. It was private sector led. And at no time before the operation began was I, as Member of Parliament, informed that an eviction or demolition exercise was going to take place. I found out when the people were already being bulldozed. I started receiving phone calls as early as 6 a.m. when residents started appealing to me for assistance. By that time, homes were already being demolished and families were already displaced. So I want to dispel the misinformation suggesting that the government of Jamaica planned this operation or that I somehow knew it was coming and stood by. That simply is not true. I was told the community was on lockdown as people could not leave their homes unless it was a medical emergency or for work. I was also informed that a number of males were taken into custody. I tried reaching out to the superintendent in charge of the parish, but got no response initially. Sometime after, the super returned my call and informed me that court documents were showed to the police for assistance in the operation. The dispute over these lands has existed for many years and predates my tenure as Member of Parliament. Based on the certificate of title obtained from the National Land Agency's website, the property is registered to New Falmouth Resorts Limited. It is therefore understood that yesterday's operation was undertaken on behalf of that private landowner. Now, I also want to be very responsible in what I say. I do not condone informal occupation of land. I have never done so. The people of Wakefield know the position I have consistently taken because I believe communities must be developed in an orderly and lawful manner. Land ownership matters, property rights matter, and the rule of law matters. But here is where I draw the line. The rule of law and basic humanity are not enemies. You can respect property rights and still respect people. You can recover possession of land without stripping another human being of dignity. The government of Jamaica cannot simply dictate to a private landowner how that owner should deal with his or her property within the confines of the law. But surely, as Jamaicans, we can expect that our people will be treated humanely. A 3-day-old baby should never have been placed in a bath pan and put outside while her mother, who had just undergone a cesarean section, was forced out of her home. A student should not have to search for a laptop that was reportedly taken while her home was being invaded. Residents should not have to report that goods were looted from their businesses or that money disappeared from their establishments. And people should not have to watch their possession being destroyed when they are already experiencing the trauma of losing the place they called home. There was a better way to do this. If possession of the property was legally to be recovered, then people could have been afforded reasonable notice and a meaningful opportunity to remove themselves and their belongings. That would not have changed who owned the land. It would simply have demonstrated compassion, decency, and humanity. And that is why I'm anxious to know who determined that this was an appropriate way to carry out this eviction. Who authorized the manner in which this operation was executed? What instructions were given? And what safeguards were put in place for children, the elderly, mothers, families, and people's personal belongings? These are legitimate questions, and the people of Cooper Spring deserve answers. But I also want Jamaicans to understand what happened after the calls for help came. When I saw the scale of displacement here, I immediately appealed to the Prime Minister for government intervention, not to interfere with private property rights, but to help Jamaicans who suddenly had nowhere to sleep. and the government responded. The ODPM was mobilized, and they were mobilized in good time. And I remained with the community while we awaited the trucks bringing emergency assistance so that displaced residents could at least have somewhere to lay their heads last night. That is a distinction that must be understood. The government of Jamaica did not carry out the demolition. The government responded to the humanitarian crisis that followed it. Today, I am back in Cooperspen. I will continue working with the affected families and the relevant agencies to determine what assistance can be provided and how we can help people begin to pick up the pieces. We will examine the history of the land. We will examine the legal issues. We will determine exactly who authorized this operation and whether everything that occurred was lawful. Whatever our views on informal settlements, politics, or on property rights, human dignity cannot be conditional upon whether your name appears on a title. I stand with the people of Cooperspen as they recover from what happened yesterday. I will continue to help them in whatever way I can, lawfully, and I will continue asking the questions that need to be answered. Because things could have been done differently, things should have been done differently. And I hope what happened in Cooperspen will remind all of us that even when exercising a legal right, there is room for humanity. My name is Tova Hamilton, Member of Parliament for Trelawney Northern.